my name's Tenshi, aka Ken the Monk Main. Now that we're acquainted, let's go ahead and fix Monk. Now, this was supposed to be practically the Dragon Ball dedicated monastic tradition to the monk. I don't know why a good majority of the monk subclasses are anime references, or just straight up stereotypical, but, you know, we'll cover that another time. Now, with that being said, the Sun Soul Monk is not only the Dragon Ball homage, but a subclass that focuses on radiant damage and the ability to defeat its enemies,
the full concentrated power of the sun!
Coming together with ki blasts, beam waves, and even a spirit bomb. Well, sorta. Without further ado, let's get right into it. Okay, so off rip, I'm changing the name to Tenjutsu Monk versus the Sun Soul Monk. Ten meaning above, heaven, spiritual, and jutsu meaning art. This is typically when they're referring to martial art forms, so when you kind of like put it together, it means heaven's art, or divine arts, which is exactly what we're trying to portray when it comes to this class. This is also giving homage and love to things that we can see in Eastern media, such as the Budokai Tenkaichi series from Dragon Ball. So disclaimer, while I understand where WOTC was coming from earlier in the year to kind of steer away from racial stereotypes, it's kind of meh to undermine the appreciation for the Eastern culture if you're going to include it, considering how interesting it can sound even so much as just by their name. It's kind of shocking, really. We have things like the Gloomstalker existing, the Zealot Barbarian, and so on. Starting at 3rd level, we have Radiant Sunbolt. But you know, I'm going to go ahead and change that to something a bit more fitting, and I'm going to name it Heavenly Strikes. But originally, Radiant Sunbolt simply only dealt your martial arts high in radiant damage at a range of 30 feet. No buffs, no additional damage, just ranged radiant attacks. Considering that this was supposed to be the core of the subclass, and literally the only subclass feature to give at 3rd level is so underpowered it's insane. So, I went ahead and gave it the love it so rightfully deserved with my Heavenly Strikes. Now it deals additional damage equal to your Wisdom modifier, still keeping the radiant damage, and it also increases its range by 20 feet per monastic tradition level. But now, we spice things up with my own personal twist at 3rd level. Not letting you guys just run around with radiant ki blasts, no, to give you something a little bit more to bring to the fight, the Heavenly Sword. Similar to Trunks in the Dragon Ball universe, where the inspiration comes from, I made it to where you can spend 2 ki points to grant a monk weapon of your choosing a little bit of a boost in radiant damage equal to your martial arts style for a minute. Let's not stop there. Let's go ahead and give it a little bit more juice. If you don't have a weapon, you can also use the same ki to summon a short sword that deals 1d6 slashing and radiant, but also scales with Tenjutsu level. This is so that you can still be that weapon-based monk and hold on to this holy light martial arts style without having to really sacrifice your favorite weapon, magic items, or anything else that you picked up along the way. Now that we're healthy for 3rd level and early game, why don't we go ahead and move on to 6th level and kind of mid-game. Originally, Sun Soul Monk was given the Searing Arc Strike feature at this level, which allows you to cast Burning Hands as a bonus action. That by itself is okay, considering that it's a 1st level spell you're getting access to at 6th level. I mean, it's neat that you can burn ki to upcast it, but it's also kind of bad considering the fact that this, once again, is the only feature you get at 6th level. Let's not forget that it doesn't really sync up with your flurry of blows or anything else of that nature. So, here we are again. No synergy, no real increased damage, just 1st level spell. I can kind of see the good and the bad in this portion. So, let's go ahead and put a pin on that for now and talk about what else I personally gave my Tenjutsu Monk at 6th level to kind of fill in that gap, you know? I went ahead and gave them 2 more features to fill in the fun parts of what the subclass is supposed to be, which would be the Celestial Dragon Kick and the Celestial Dragon Dance. The Celestial Dragon Kick allows you to mark enemies whenever you critically succeed on attacking them, letting your Radiant Ki rest inside of them as you do it. And then if you choose to, somewhere between 2 rounds of combat, you can choose to teleport to them and erupt that Radiant Ki around them whenever you arrive, To my Dragon Ball fans, this is your instant transmission that doesn't really require you to flavor Misty Step and just leave yourself wide open afterwards. This will allow you to get a sense of extra mobility and crowd fighting advantage on top of using Searing Arc Strike. Next up is something I think we can all enjoy, the Celestial Dragon Dance. At 6th level, you'll be able to cast Magic Missile at the cost of 2 key points, and much like Searing Arc Strike, you'll be able to increase the damage and the output based upon how many key points you decide to use. This will at least pad that far-ranged fighting style that the Sun Soul was originally supposed to be, while also giving it a little bit of versatility on choosing whether or not you want to burst them down with close range and burning hands, or keep that long 120 feet, or maybe somewhere around that distance. Speaking of which, let's go ahead and revisit Searing Arc Strike / Burning Hands, shall we? Now that we touched up on some extra goodies, I feel as though Searing Arc Strike can kind of go untouched, but we can make it synergize at the very least with what we have going on here already. So, whenever you perform the Celestial Dragon Kick, if you remember that's the teleport, you can spend an additional key point, forcing your movement to become 0 after the teleport, but cast Burning Hands as you do it. This right here practically lets Dragon Ball fans live out that instant transmission combination we've seen all throughout the series. In normal terms, allowing you to teleport and wail on your enemies, or explode them wide open with a powerful beam. And just like that, we have a healthy mid-game that not only scales, but you can hold out with until 11th level. But let's not forget, this also synergizes with your main subclass shtick going forward. Speaking of 11th level, let's go ahead and talk about that. Next up, Searing Sunburst. Alright, so this on its own is supposed to act like the Spirit Bomb from the anime series, which for those of you who don't know, is a giant ball of ki made up by Goku and his allies that he would throw to obliterate extremely hard to beat enemies. And don't get me wrong, the way WOTC made this out to be is kind of neat, all the way until you get to the damage type and the radius it spreads to. It deals 2d6 radiant damage at a 20-foot radius at 11th level. And if you succeed on the Constitution saving throw for it, you don't even take half damage. Spells formatted like how this is written means that when they succeed, they don't take the damage or even the effects at all. While yes, you can use ki to empower it, there's this odd cap of only 3 ki points to increase it, and it doesn't even bother to increase the radius or anything else. So as an action, you're spending ki to throw out this 120-foot ranged ball of ki that could potentially not deal any damage and only spreads 20 feet. Did I mention if the creature's behind total cover, it just does not work on them whatsoever? I wish I was joking. Do you all realize that you can cast Fireball at further range, deal 8d6 base damage that has the same radius and even causes half damage on a successful save? So you see the problem here, right? Okay, so let's definitely fix this then. Now, before y'all blow me up over spellcasting and whatnot, well yes, Sun Soul monks are not inherently spellcasters. A feature like this is just downright awful entering late game. Whether you be a martial, a half caster, a full caster, or whatever. A mini fireball that could potentially deal no damage, but burning a third of your ki if you wanted to make it effective is just downright bad. And this isn't using any kind of reworked monk. This isn't using additional ki points from the 1 D&D rule. This is just going based off of strict 5th edition. Using this, at this current level, burns a third of your ki points. So for my Tenjutsu monk, I made it to where you sacrifice your turn to form the sphere just as Goku, but instead starting the base damage at 4d6. And then what I went ahead and did to make up for that little adjustment from action to entire turn is that whenever you throw it, anything caught in this radius either takes half damage or full damage depending on the save. You know, the whole fireball thing that this didn't seem to have. And as for that cover rule, we're getting rid of that entirely. In fact, it now ignores all forms of cover and disintegrates non-magical objects on contact. This lets it hold up to have a devastating potency, especially when fighting enemies in an enclosed space or fighting hordes of enemies in non-magical terrains. But I know what you're probably thinking, what next? Well, for starters, we're going to go ahead and bump up that ki maximum to 6 instead of 3, allowing you to still increase the damage by 2d6, but also increase the radius of the explosion as you do it. This is staying true to what the Spirit Bomb is actually supposed to be once it is thrown. And if not that, getting it somewhat on par with other magical spells at this level. And as an added bonus, and a touch of flavor to finish this off, if your allied features are in combat with you, they can choose to give you the help action and provide an extra 1d6 to the Searing Sunburst, or the Spirit Bomb. Okay, so bear with me, almost done. Lastly, we're at 17th level, our endgame trump card, the Sun Shield.
Oh, brother, this guy stinks!
Okay, so this is supposed to be WOTC's Super Saiyan, but my goodness gracious, why is it so gross? You shine with 30 feet of light, and deal 5 plus your Wisdom mod and radiant damage whenever you're hit by a melee attack. That's it. That's all there is. No enhancements to make you feel ultimately powerful, no extra attacks or techniques to slap on top of it. This is your endgame feature. Congratulations, you are now a damaging flashlight. At this point, you're practically just cosplaying a Super Saiyan, so you can go ahead and throw that fantasy right out the door. So taking out the Dragon Ball love for just a moment, for most martials, this can seem okay? Preferably a mid-game feature in my eyes, but it's okay. The thing is, it's horrible for monks, because you can't go on and add armor, special gear effects, and etc. on top of this. Otherwise, you end up sacrificing your unarmored defense and even kinda your martial arts scaling, and even with basic gear, like Boots of Speed, for example. Some non-homebrew DMs, or should we say by-the-book DMs, will go out of their way and say that counts as armor, meaning you're kind of stuck with your features, weapons, and subclass enhancements. And for this to be your endgame feature has to be arguably one of the worst subclass features in all of the classes in 5th edition. So let's go ahead and fix that up. So what I gave my Tenjutsu monk instead of the Sun Soul, it can also gain the resistance to non-magical slashing, bludgeoning, and piercing damage while this aura is active, allowing you to get those juicy counterattacks from deflect missiles or 1D&D's deflect attack a little bit more fluently, and if not, still be in combat without feeling unequipped, especially this late into the game. And for the sake of it, whether you're a Dragon Ball fan, seeing this as an angelic monk, or a heavenly dragon variant, I went ahead and added a flying speed equal to your current movement, allowing you to take to the skies or kite enemies and use a wider variety of range with everything that you've had before. See? That's a healthy late game ability. Speaking of which, I went ahead and kept the radiant damage you deal from being attacked, but buffed it to a 10 plus your wisdom mod, not 5. So now here we are, added up and down and filling in the underpowered spots of the Sun Soul Monk that can now let you change up your attacks, teleport, and take a lick without losing out on the fun of taking full levels into Monk. But before we end, let's give you something to end your journey off with. Something to synergize once more with your base Monk class and feel just as powerful as other endgame abilities, such as, the Death Strike, the Quivering Palm, Strength Before Death. I digress. A feature of my own and the final ability of the Tenjutsu Monk is called God's Judgment. This will allow you to spend 6 key points and do an unarmed strike, forcing a creature to make a con or wisdom save of your choice, or take 10 d8 radiant damage and pushing them back 100 feet. And if they just so happen to meet a vertical hard surface, they take additional damage. And to finish this technique off, if they are at 80 hit points or less, whenever you do this technique against them, they are immediately disintegrated. This is a true endgame feature, I personally believe, and is something that should be done to burst down or execute an exceptionally hard enemy. While not as crazy as Quivering Palm, this provides a burst of damage that also allows you to live in that radiant martial arts fantasy, banishing and disposing of an enemy once and for all, whether it be your spirit of Yang overpowering them or devouring them with the soul of a dragon. And there you have it. Way of the Sun Soul is now properly fixed for all tiers of play and holds true to the love of its origin. You can now go about your adventures shooting key blasts, teleporting, and becoming that legendary warrior you've always wanted to be in your journey alongside your friends. The Tenjutsu Monk will be open and available for playtesting, link in the description, and don't forget to subscribe, comment, and even share your thoughts over these changes. Be sure you guys go ahead and check out D&D Shorts, Bone Wizard, Joe Cat, and Pack Tactics. They were a big inspiration in me taking a step to actually create D&D content, as well as a whole playlist of other people that you can check out on my channel, and I hope that one day these videos can reach out to them too. So until we meet again, everyone, stay safe, stay hydrated, and please, don't scream like Goku at your tables because of this. I will not be held responsible.